Welcome to the next episode of the Assembly Line podcast, the place where industrial businesses come to tell their story and share more about their success in their industries. Today, we're joined by Stelios, our project manager, and obviously Andreas, my business partner and operations director at Solvi Digital. Today, we are obviously entering a new year. We're moving into 2025.
Wow,
Already, exactly. And today, I think we want to dig a bit deeper into the types of strategies that our clients are really starting to talk about this year, and perhaps some of those changes, things that are going to be staying the same, and where those brands are going. Where is industrial marketing going? And hopefully we can get some of those answers together in today's conversation.
Yeah. Well, we've gathered some questions today here. So without further ado, first one, basically. New start to the year, reflecting on the last year, what really worked well for Solvi and our clients?
So I think for Solvi, we saw a big jump in probably video production as one of our core sales assets. And one of the reasons why this is coming about is because content is now so easy to create. It's so easy to write copy with things like ChatGPT, and it is so easy to do these things that anyone can do it. So it's about how can we add additional value. It's about how can we interrupt the pattern when it comes to their marketing activities and strategy. So I'd say the introduction and inclusion of video in our packages for almost every client has had a really, really big impact on both the success for our clients, but also the success for us as a business, because I think we're spotting that sort of story-led, narrative-led content going behind the scenes of these businesses is definitely here to stay, and probably will be increasing this year.
Yeah, I guess from my end, I would say probably cold email is another side that I'm really seeing, traction with, and a lot of people are more receptive to it as well, because it's a fantastic way to open the doors and start new conversations with your ideal prospects. And I guess it's really important to do it correctly. You could easily fall into the trap where you just, generate something from ChatGPT, like you say, find some random data online, send it without, setting up the proper infrastructure, without mailboxes, without domains. That obviously leads to failure and kind of bad results. But I'd say a lot of people are seeing that there's opportunity there, because obviously with your sales team, you're limited in terms of resource. You might have 2 or 3 sales members in your team. It's a tedious task. It's a boring kind of task, trying to be repetitive and trying to send out mass mail to mass contacts, I guess. So the clients that use that on our end, they've seen that they can generate leads, or at least open doors and open conversations in a very, very easy way. So I think that will be a big thing in 25.
Yeah. But people often frown upon it, don't they? They think that it's an old school methodology, or who even looks at emails these days? Everyone gets hundreds of emails a day. But I think it's very, very specifically about how you do it. One of the lines that we frequently use, one of the things that often comes into the sort of call to actions of our email is, is it worth us having a conversation, or would you rather I step on a block of my son's Lego for sending you an email out of the blue? Like, there are these types of kind of additions or tweaks that you can make to that copy to have such a big impact, and make people almost relieved that they're just not receiving that crappy email again that's been sent out to thousands of people.
Yeah, one I would say is more that establishing the personal brand within the businesses. So we see clients focusing more on that personal employees, posting some more natural in their own environment. Let's say they're at a construction site, we say send over a video, literally slap it on, and it gets a lot of engagement, very high, a lot of comments as well. Yeah, we see that it worked very well last year.
Yeah, I guess it's just encouraging that culture within the business to actually do it, to actually take the odd photo here and there. It doesn't matter if it's not shot on a 5K camera. iPhone will do. AI these days and editing tools, you can do wonders. So it's just getting into that culture and that habit of taking that kind of raw content, let's say.
Well, another one we have is when you first started reaching out to potential customers, many asked, do we really need an online presence? How has that mindset evolved over the years?
Things changed massively. Even simply in the time that we've been working in the industrial business space, people have become much more receptive to having a quality website and being almost proud of how they look online, rather than, again, just a rubbish shop front that was built in 2009 and hasn't been updated since 2012. Like this is the reality for many industrial brands. And from a sales perspective, it's made my job a bit easier getting across that value proposition and why they should be doing it, is because they understand the value it has and the place it has in their markets.
It's absolutely essential, because if you think about it, if you think about the question, what's the first thing you do when you're looking up, when you hear about a new business, right? You'll go look for the website, you'll go check out what they're doing online. If that doesn't inspire, if that doesn't give you some kind of confidence, then that's a problem, right?
And one of the other objections around that is that, like, we don't need it because much of our business is won through tender or relationships, or these types of channels. But the reality is, no matter whether you have a great relationship with someone or all of these elements, it could even be a referral. Like I might get referred to by someone else, and if they look at my website, if they see again, like a rubbish shop front that's an old school site that doesn't answer the questions, doesn't offer a true reflection of our business and what makes us great, then it's not going to have the impact that they're looking for. And one of the things that we also say is, how do you know if it's not working? Like, how do you know if your existing website is not turning off prospective clients, because they wouldn't have reached out to you anyway?
Exactly that.
Yeah, it's like the whole world's moving online. Like, why aren't you? It's literally, that's the question. Yeah, I feel it's just almost like consistency as well. Like seeing that brand always posting, and then you see them not posting. Let's say for 5 months they stop, 6 months, 7 months. They raise some flags. Has that company closed?
Yeah, kind of when you set that expectation, I guess, with your audience, and then you stop that expectation, it does kind of trigger some kind of thinking. So yeah, I think I agree. Very important.
Looking at where we are now, what trends are you seeing in the marketing industry, particularly for industrial businesses?
What trends are we seeing? Trends in terms of services that they would be looking after, or
I think in terms of services.
in terms of services? So yeah, trend. I guess it really links back to what we were saying. So it's that videography side of things and that real life photography side of things, I think, is very important. Showcasing the behind the scenes of the brand and making the brand feel personable, so people can relate to it. They can make some kind of human connection with it. Because essentially, if we think about the buyer journey, right? Not everyone that sees a post on LinkedIn is ready to buy at that moment. They might want to buy in 2 months' time. They might have that problem that you solve in 3 months' time, or 6 months' time, or years down the line. What we want to achieve with that is to make sure that we're at the forefront of their minds when that problem does arise. And the only way that we can achieve that is by making sure, if you're putting that content to your target audience, if you're targeting them with ads, for example, and you're showcasing how you're solving, let's say, the top 5 pain points that they typically face, how you eliminate those pain points, how you make their life easier, that's who they're going to remember when that pain comes to life, basically.
I agree. I think, like, be known when it matters. These are all key elements. I think in terms of trends, probably just almost a general trend that we see in maybe changes in consumer behavior or buyer behavior is that the first touch point with an actual human has moved further down that journey. Yeah. So you're almost further down that buyer journey when you actually reach out to a business, when you pick up the phone, when you send an email, because we're used to accessing information online. We're used to Googling something. We're used to reading a blog. Where now, ChatGPT has really readily available access to the internet. Many people even go onto that and ask questions, which then references websites, which is really incredible. So I think we when we're making decisions, when we're doing research, we can find out information at the click of a button, and it's up to you whether you want to be the person that someone finds to address that problem, that concern. And if you are, then it's very likely that then they'll pick up the phone to you. If not, it's almost certain that it will be a competitor.
Yeah, also one trend I've seen is maybe some businesses are like almost having like fear of missing out. They might see another business and they're trying almost too quickly with no strategy, with no nothing, not proper marketing agency to back them up and actually strategize a whole content plan for them to actually reach their goals. They just go for it, post not that good content, and then they just fail.
That's a very good point, actually, because I was thinking of that earlier. All these tools that are available now, like ChatGPT or Canva for designs, or all these various tools that are here to make life easier, right? But it's so important that the person using them knows how to use them. And it's almost a bit of a fear of mine that I'm seeing in these businesses, because since ever, people try to do certain stuff themselves, right? And it comes down to the fact that if you own your business, you want to try to do things yourself. You don't really want to hand it off to other people. So these tools are making that easier now to do, right? If you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know what strategy you need to follow, if you don't know how to prompt ChatGPT, for example, if you don't have design principles, yeah, it might take you 5 minutes to do a Canva design. Will it be good? Will it have the impact it has to have? Probably not.
Yeah, and you touched upon a really important point there about it being part of a bigger strategy. Like, unless it also involves things like, in this case, we're talking about LinkedIn, maybe it involves some sort of LinkedIn lead generation strategy as well. Maybe it's a webinar that you're running to get, build new relationships with. Maybe it's a guide that you've put together that you want to achieve downloads for. Just effectively fostering an organic LinkedIn presence on a company page isn't going to help you achieve those targets and goals. So rather than engaging in just, I guess, tactical singular activities, it's about understanding where that fits into the wider strategy, the wider plan, and effectively how it's going to help you scale your business.
Yeah, that was the next question, so we can skip that one.
Nice.
Yeah. Storytelling has been a major focus this year. Why do you think introducing narrative into marketing has been so effective?
I think all we have to do is go back to the almost like mythologies and the stories that have lived for generations. You look at religious text, you look at things like this. For me, that is the power of story. Like, if they were just a list of bullet points, would they have existed? Probably not. No one would have been in any way intrigued or entertained by the ups, the downs, the meaning weaved between real life experiences, and even if they're not real life experiences, in many cases, weaved between the narrative and the story. So I'd say there's almost just an element of human nature there. I think we are innately interested in and relatively nosy surrounding that story component across both brand, like the personal brand sort of segment of that, all fit into that mix.
It's also just grabbing that. It's the advantage of grabbing people's attention. Like you're just casually scrolling on LinkedIn, you see a little hook there, and then underneath, like, read more. That little hook is so important for people to actually sit there and read it. If it's a bullet point, no one really cares at the end of the day.
Yeah, that first point is that first kind of line that you see is probably 95%, does 95% of the job of the whole post, essentially. So yeah, it's so important, and it comes back to the fact that we want to make brands feel like they're a human, right? That they have a character, that they have a personality. And especially in our industry, this is probably something that needs a bit of a shift in mindset, in terms of understanding that it's okay to make an industrial brand feel more like a human, to feel more personable, to have some kind of emotion to it, to look raw, let's say. It's okay. It doesn't need to be that corporate-y, that corporate-y feel that is so hard to relate to as a person. You don't want to just be another brand amongst the other thousands of other brands that look, have the same kind of typical blue, color without feel.
Yeah. A really interesting analogy to bring there is and I think the kind of modernness in the brands, one that we've been talking about is things like in the property and like the office space industry. And you look at these like already established brands, like office brands like Regus, who have hundreds of offices all over the UK, certainly, and across the world, and how their very kind of corporate type marketing strategies and approaches are just, they're almost just super transactional. And I think partly is that's the type of businesses that they target. But then recently we were doing some research for a client around WeWork, and we stumbled across WeWork's LinkedIn. And it really it's incredible. It leans heavily into that B2C market. Another one, again, Andreas, you might be wanting to lean in and mention this one, but it's about curries and the types of things that we saw there.
Yeah, these kind of short video intros that you might see on TikTok in terms of someone doing like a karate kick and kicking the bottle across the room, and then it hits someone else on the head, and then you kind of continue the scene. Yeah, I mean, stuff like that is so low budget to almost film and produce, but probably can have a bigger impact than paying 50K for a commercial, purely because it's relatable, it's funny, it grabs the attention, and it's perfectly made for the platform that it's on.
Yeah, and you touched upon B2B and B2C. It's very important to actually determine the target audience for each of those targets.
Yeah, and strategies can get quite complex there. So an example of a client that we've just started supporting and working with, the strategy involves effectively almost changing consumer behavior within a certain market. And what we're doing is we're shooting some video and running some campaigns for end users, for effectively customers, to show brands how they receive or perceive the way of cooling liquids, the way of refrigeration, effectively in this case. So there's some really interesting strategies and approaches you can use around there that aren't your traditional B2B marketing, but it's almost sort of demand generation or driving demand from the bottom up to prove that concept to brands, which is really powerful.
You really have to get creative, don't you? Really have to. As you look ahead, what new opportunities do you see for industrial businesses to stand out in 2025?
It's again going against the grain. It's doing things differently, introducing things like we've spoken about in terms of the personal back end side of the business, showing behind the scenes, not just trying to polish everything and be the perfect example of a business in your industry, but showing the frustrations. Something that I heard the other day, which is kind of related to this, is the fact that people trust a business with 4.7 stars far more than they do with a client with a business that's got 5 stars. And what that means is people don't want perfection. They don't trust perfection because they know that it's not reality. Things can't be perfect, but 4.7 stars shows that they've had enough reviews that people have had a really high quality experience, but you're not trying to almost fake it. You're not trying to pretend to be something you're not.
It's almost more trusted, isn't it?
Yeah, you just have to find what makes you unique and always shout about it, not be afraid to put it out there. I hear a lot from businesses and business owners that they kind of list down their USPs, right? And if I'm honest, probably like 8 out of 10 of those listed USPs are the same USPs that other businesses tell me. And I get how they feel that that's the case, but you really have to dig deep and see what actually makes you unique as a business. Yeah. It's probably the things that you don't even imagine.
Fast service, like replying to emails within 24 hours. Like it's almost things that just are just standard business practice. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah,
definitely. Another question: what are some common misconceptions some of the clients have about marketing?
It's a really good question. One of them, probably on my side, would be that marketing is solely brand focused and doesn't cross over into that sales side of things. We always talk about the real integration between sales and marketing, and so many brands treat them as just these completely separate departments, as separate as finance and operations. But really, they're not. They should be very much part of that same department. They should be speaking regularly, should be having conversations. Sales should be feeding back information, lead quality, bits like that to the marketing team. And if they're not, then there's a big problem in the business. I'd say that's probably a misconception that they are two separate, distinct areas of revenue generation.
I'd say they're separate, but they definitely go hand in hand. Definitely. You obviously get a sale, you're going to go, let's say on the LinkedIn, search that company up. You see some beautiful graphics, you see that brand's identity, and that could lead to a sale.
It's hugely integrated, yeah. But people just don't take that into account, do they?
Yeah. And it comes back to this cliche kind of phrase, it's like bridging the gap between marketing and sales, right? And it's quite hard enough to make businesses understand that they have to be integrated to an extent, right? They're not these separate departments. It's even harder to define the exact handoff between these two departments. And a lot of opportunities get lost. I see a lot of opportunities get lost there because if you consider marketing, you might, if you take an example in terms of a cold email campaign, you might see across a period of 6 months, you have generated, let's say 50 leads, 50 positive replies, or essentially opening the door to build a relationship there. Small misconceptions or small miscommunications in terms of not knowing how to properly follow up, not knowing who to hand that off to, who checks the follow-ups, who does the follow-ups, all that kind of stuff leads to missed opportunities. And I think it's a massive challenge that these businesses are facing.
Yeah, we make the assumption that that's often in place, right? And I think it's that bigger sales process piece. Like I know one of your big pet hates is when you get someone that maybe comes back to you, whether it's a cold email strategy or an inbound inquiry from someone that's attended a webinar or all of these things, that they are spoken to or reached out to once, and there is no other communication strategy put in place for them. There's no more activities put in the CRM for them. You don't know when you're going to call them next. You don't know what next touch point they're going to receive from the business. And there is untold revenue lost from that. There's a very small percentage of people that are ready to buy now. But our job in those sort of sales functions is to make sure that, as we spoke about earlier, when someone does need us, they think of us and they come to us.
Yeah, definitely. But on the flip side, when does marketing fail to deliver? I can start that off. It's definitely when you post too much content at the same time. Definitely. Some people think it's uploading 2, 3, 4 posts per day is going to get you where you want to be. It's definitely not.
Yeah, it kind of takes away from following almost a steady strategy, I'd say, or working towards a common goal. I think we see that that's the case often in businesses where there's a lot of people excited about social media, and you kind of get requests from different departments and different people within the business. Maybe they want a reactive post regarding something that they worked on one department, then another one comes from another one. And I guess that can take away from the strategy, definitely. The other thing I'd say is quite a harsh one, but it's when the client almost has a very set vision in their mind in terms of almost what should happen, and are a bit closed off in terms of taking on board a new idea or a new approach. It's not often I see this, it's quite rare in terms of cases, but there are just times where a strategy, you just know it won't work. And with our experience, I guess 6-7 years now, we kind of know what really works in this industry and what doesn't. So yeah, I'd say that's another one when you don't have that buy-in from stakeholders.
Yeah, I agree there definitely. From the sales side of things, perhaps a bit more back end, but it's when as a sort of someone involved in that sales process, the expectations aren't set clearly. And this is not happened very recently, because I think we've learned from it many times, but it's about just really being honest and realistic with those expectations. In many of the organizations that we work with, a deal value might be 50K, 100K, 250K contracts. So they're real quite significant opportunities. And for them to expect to get a sale from a single LinkedIn post is not it's not authentic, it's not realistic. And I think it's really important that when we're selling to them, when we're having those conversations, we're really honest about how long it takes for that to really yield results in terms of the organic media front. But then in terms of the other strategies like sort of paid advertising and cold email, we need to run the numbers and we need to think about, okay, how many inquiries are we likely to get from this search volume? Once we get those inquiries through, what's their average rate to quote or rate to move that to the next stage? And then after they've quoted, after they've sent a proposal, how many businesses do they typically close? How many clients do they typically close on the back of that? And it's really important that they understand those numbers and see what the commercial impact of those activities are going to be and that it's realistic.
It's definitely important to be transparent as well with the clients, obviously. One of Solvy's digital's core goals has been to truly understand client objectives. As the agency grows, how do you ensure that remains at the heart of what you do?
It's a good question. And I guess pretty authentically, it's not actually easy. It's not easy to do. Like we could take on many more clients. We could do much more in terms of revenue pretty quickly if we compromised on that element. But I'd say for us, we've dealt with businesses in the past so many times, whether it's like an IT company that we need some information off or another agency that we're getting a handover from, where communication is just so slow. It's submitting tickets. It's these elements that just are painful in terms of how these businesses operate. And we swore, Andreas and I, 4 or 5 years ago now, probably, that we would never become those types of businesses, and we still haven't. So our quick answer is it's not been easy, but it's also not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add there. It's just, I think it's what makes our business unique. I think it's why we're going to become the #1 industrial marketing agency in the UK. And that just has to be at the top of the priority list.
Your approach has always been hands-on and proactive with every client. Why is that so important to you, and how do your clients respond to it?
I think because we're obviously the owners of the business, clients like to see that we hold the responsibility for their project, which kind of makes it difficult when we're bringing new people on board. It's difficult to kind of introduce new faces, new people with responsibility for that, because they always need to know that they can kind of come back to us and for us to be accountable for that performance. So they'd say that's perhaps a related challenge there. But we're always there. Like I literally just before we jumped on this call, before we filmed this episode, I had clients calling me. We pick up the phone. We have those conversations. We take the calls when it's perhaps not convenient or when we might have our head stuck into other things. It's just how we operate.
It just might be how we are as people as well. Like we just love a good relationship with the client.
Yeah,
just love being close.
I remember, was it 3 years ago? I was in Italy. Remember, I was in Italy for 6 months, and it was just, we were testing a new service. I believe we were trying out a new service, and I remember I couldn't sleep at night until I saw a result come through. It's probably not healthy to take it so personally, but yeah, I guess it comes back to what you say. It's just, I guess it's part of our character in terms of just wanting to do good. And it's, at the end of the day, we're people, right? We're not just a large organization that you might get passed on to one account manager. The next time you pick up, you might get passed on to someone else.
Yep.
They know our names. We have a reputation, I guess, to uphold, right? So yeah, very important.
A great ad can make all the difference. What characteristics do you think define a truly standout ad for industrial businesses?
I mean, that's probably not one of my strengths. Andreas and the team are running some incredible ads at the moment.
Well,
yeah, I think it's probably. Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
I think it really comes down to cohesive execution between all the touch points, right? So from the copy to the graphic to the targeting, everything has to be aligned. And as soon as something from that mix is not aligned, if it falls through, it fails, because we're competing against others, whether that's Google Ads, that'll be cost per click, or CPM. We want to make sure as soon as our target audience sees our ad, the messaging relates to them, grabs attention, but it also relates to them in terms of the pain points that we illustrate. And from a graphic perspective, it's all aligned. It matches what they have in mind, essentially. And then from then onwards, obviously, it really depends where we want to take them, whether that's a landing page. That's a whole nother story in terms of the messaging from top to bottom has to make sense, has to be a journey in terms of a journey that you go through all the way through to the final kind of call to action, I guess, whether that's a phone call or submitting a lead form. So I guess to answer your question, is anything from that mix that doesn't align will cause it to fall through.
I think that carries across to the tracking side of things as well. Like some of the stuff that the team do on this end in terms of like tracking and performance analytics is really incredible. Like even the tools we introduce, things like bits of software that track sort of mouse movements and the psychology of what people look at on those pages, the heat maps from top to bottom of how far people scroll through the page. Are there any certain elements of that page on the landing page front, the PPC front, that kind of that make people drop off? So then we can adjust those and change those elements. There are all these
disclaimer. This is GDPR compliant.
yeah, it is indeed. So like this sort of tracking and this way of analyzing performance, analyzing results allows us to be really quite agile and not just use this like shotgun, say it and spray it approach, but really looking at the intricacies, the key metrics that the client's keeping us accountable for, and making those changes accordingly.
Even like Andrea said, especially with the landing pages, like everything needs to be especially consistent, and with the wording, like you can't be at the first main page, here it looks good, and then you go at the bottom, call to action is completely different, and then the potential client's like, so is this what I want, or do I want something else? Is this really what I want? Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, industrial businesses often struggle to connect the products or services with the right audience. What tips do we have to help them stand out in a crowded market?
What tips? I guess it comes back to partly to what I said earlier in terms of the pain points. So really understanding, well, first of all, really understanding who your target audience is, what exactly how they look like, listing down what those pain points are, top 3, top 5 pain points that they most typically face, but also linked in terms of how your service can eliminate those. So yeah, I think that's critical in terms of doing that.
I think for me, it's around having the right combination of activities. So as a digital agency, primarily, it's all well and good us going and saying, yeah, guys, you need to run some ads. You need to do whatever, organic content, video, whatever it might be. But for us, I think we have to be really quite critical of, is that the right strategy? Would a lumpy mail campaign be better for you? Would an outbound cold calling campaign be better for you? Obviously, perhaps slightly different objectives in many cases, but I think they have to be really quite critical with what the right tool is for the job. Like you're not going to use a hammer to put a screw in the wall, are you? Like you have to use the right tool to achieve the objectives that you've set out. So that might be as I say, handwritten letter campaign, might be ads, might be video, organic content, static. It completely depends. So getting those right mix of activities correct is one of the best places to go to.
I think from a strategy standpoint is timing as well. Like time Google, let's say ads, then LinkedIn post goes out, and then maybe after 2-3 days, an email goes out to them, and then you're just there in like the potential client's face all the time. Keep reminding them.
Yeah, on a multi-channel, I guess, perspective, you want to appear on all channels and have the right messaging at the same time. I think what you said about strategy is very important, and almost I would add to that, making sure that the end-to-end strategy is actually implemented. So an example I can give is something I've seen in the past, essentially, where a strategy is kind of half done. If we take, for example, exhibitions, right? We get a lot of our businesses going to exhibitions. They might spend loads and loads of money setting up a nice stand, banners, all that jazz. But essentially, what happens next? Have you followed up with those people? Have you actually built any relationships? do you have a process? Who's going to do that? Have you captured the information?
And did your
All
audience
these little
actually
bits.
know you actually did that exhibition
Yeah, exactly.
in the first place?
All those little bits that you get so excited from the main event, but the little bits are what actually make everything work.
That's such a fundamental point. People come away and it's like it almost becomes an afterthought. Like people come away with like 200 new contacts that they might add to a CRM, and then 3 weeks later, after they've packed up their stand and thought like, how did that expo go, or how did that exhibition go? They
Did we do enough?
Exactly.
They live in regret.
So that's you need to know before you attend the event. Simple as.
Definitely. Yeah, there are plenty of pitfalls in the agency space. What do you think sets Solver Digital apart from others?
I think one of the obvious ones is our specialism in the industrial type sector and our understanding of how those businesses operate, how we can take them on a journey from A to B in a way that is not just this like shocking, crazy journey that is going to blow their minds at every stage of it, that they're not set up for. So I'd say probably for us, it's that real, very, very specific market that we operate in, whether it be like industrial services, FM, security, it might be industrial distribution, cleaning supplies, PPE, those kind of key areas, manufacturing as well. Primarily, we understand intimately how those businesses work, and that's kind of what we've become known for.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes I remember that being part of like some objections that we had from clients. It's almost like, but if you work with other similar businesses, then, you know, isn't that a conflict in interest? Well, I guess if we don't do it, someone else, another agency would do it, first of all. And secondly, isn't it better to kind of trust that in the hands of someone that's actually done it before, knows how to generate results, can guarantee almost to an extent that they'll generate results, versus giving it to an agency that does, I don't know, dentistry or
that's a really good point. Like how I like to think about that in terms of like other contexts is like who would you rather do your heart surgery? Would you rather like a general surgeon, or would you rather a specialist who's done it hundreds of times on different patients? Is, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, and definitely like coming off what you just said, like seeing some maybe like a similar business to yours, I would personally go with the agency that does in that area, 100%.
yeah, it's just the way that some people think, and I can see the reasoning behind it. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of benefits versus the negatives, I would say, that come with it.
Yeah. Well, wrapping up, if you could give one piece of advice to industrial businesses planning the marketing for 2025, what would it be?
Mine would be, you need to take brand more seriously, I would say. You need to start thinking about how you're going to compete 5 years' time with your competitors. Because I guess I could still get off by saying we're still early on in the journey, but it won't be the case in 3 to 5 years, I would say. There still is the misconception or the kind of thinking behind these industrial businesses that brand is perhaps not so important. We'll just do things the traditional way. It's always worked, so why change now? That won't be the case in 5 years.
Mine would be to choose Solvi, I think.
Choose Solvi. Yeah, I should have gone for that.
No, I'll say the same as I did last year and probably the year before that, which is starting with defining that strategy and those objectives rather than starting with the activity itself. Don't go out and tell yourself, okay, I'm going to find a Google Ads agency, I'm going to find a LinkedIn agency. Start with understanding whether it's whether it's an internal discussion with the board or it's a consultant that you work with externally that has no invested interest in the retained marketing function. I would say start with defining that strategic component, doing an audit, taking stock of what you currently have, defining objectives of what you want to have in a year's time, 2 years' time, and then find the right agency or internal team that will help you achieve that.
Yeah, I agree with you, 100%, definitely.
Well, that's another episode wrapped up, ready for 2025 to kick off, and we're really looking forward to working and servicing our existing clients to the best of our ability, and we can't wait to work with many new industrial brands.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Another year.